At long last, movement on the government shutdown. The Senate finally clears a funding bill after a 6-week stalemate. So is the shutdown about to end or just enter a new round? Plus, President Trump floats a $2,000 dividend for Americans. But where would the money actually come from? And it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. The Rockefeller tree has arrived in Manhattan. The stories that matter, clear and credible, from across the country to around the world. These are your unbiased updates from Straight Arrow News. Good morning, I'm Craig DeGrelli. We begin this morning with a possible end in sight for the government shutdown, now in its 6th week. Last night, 8 Senate Democrats joined Republicans to advance a House-passed short-term funding bill. The 60-40 vote is a move that could reopen the government as soon as this week. The deal would fund the government through January, restore pay for federal workers, and reverse mass firings ordered under the Trump administration. In exchange, Democrats secured only a promise, not a guarantee, for a later vote on extending Affordable Care Act tax credits, their key demand throughout the shutdown. Minority Leader Chuck Schumer was among the Democrats who voted no, calling the plan incomplete and saying the fight is far from over. Majority Leader John Thune, meanwhile, urged immediate passage, saying it's time to get the government open.
We asked President Trump to step in and meet with us to deliver lower health care for Americans, and instead, Donald Trump has taken the American people hostage, from cutting off food aid to hungry families and vets and seniors and kids, to manufacturing flight cancellations, to cutting off home heating aid. This health care crisis is so severe, so urgent, so devastating for families back home that I cannot in good faith support this CR that fails to address the health care crisis.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, after 40 long days, I'm hopeful that we can finally bring the shutdown to an end. And I don't need to go over all the reasons why it's imperative that we get the government open as soon as possible. From the truly precarious situation we are in with regard to air travel to the fact that our staffs have been working without pay for a full 40 days now, all of us, Republicans and Democrats, who support this bill know that the time to act is now.
The Senate reconvenes at 11 Eastern and is expected to continue negotiating final details. Even with progress, it still could be days before the shutdown officially ends. A federal appeals court has ruled the Trump administration must fully fund food assistance benefits during the ongoing government shutdown. Late Sunday night, the First Circuit Court of Appeals in Boston upheld a lower court ruling from Rhode Island requiring the U.S. Department of Agriculture to release $4 billion to ensure Americans receive full SNAP benefits, commonly known as food stamps. The decision came after the USDA told states to immediately undo any steps taken to distribute full benefits, warning of possible financial penalties. Several states began issuing payments on Friday, but on Saturday, Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson temporarily paused the order while the appeals court reviewed the case. Even with Sunday's ruling, that pause stays in place for 48 hours, meaning payments won't resume right away. It is still unclear whether the administration plans to follow through on its threat to penalize states it says acted without authorization. President Trump is promising what he calls a $2,000 dividend for most Americans, saying the money would come from the nation's booming tariff revenues. In a Truth Social post, the president wrote, "People that are against tariffs are fools. We are taking in trillions of dollars and will soon begin paying down our enormous debt. A dividend of at least $2,000 a person, not including high-income people, will be paid to everyone." It was just one of a string of weekend posts where Trump claimed the U.S. was the richest and most respected country in the world, thanks to his trade policies, and that those tariffs are now paying down the national debt. But on ABC, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent stopped short of calling Trump's dividend promise an actual plan.
The $2,000 dividend could come in lots of forms, in lots of ways, George. It could be just the tax decreases that we are seeing on the president's agenda. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, deductibility of auto loans.
For now, there's no formal proposal, no congressional language, and no clear math showing how a $2,000 payout would be funded, though the Bipartisan Policy Center shows the U.S. has brought in $227 billion in tariffs in 2025. The president has floated the idea, but the details, the dollars, and the specifics are not yet there. President Trump has issued a wave of new pardons, clearing more than 70 political allies tied to efforts to overturn the 2020 election. The proclamation posted Sunday night by pardon attorney Ed Martin lists high-profile names, including Rudy Giuliani, former Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, and attorney Sidney Powell, among others, accused or investigated over election interference. Trump calls the pardons, quote, the end of a grave national injustice and part of a process of national reconciliation. Giuliani had faced criminal charges in Georgia, accused of helping organize a fake slate of electors and spreading false claims of voter fraud. He was indicted on 13 counts, including soliciting officials to violate their oaths and making false statements. Giuliani was also found liable in civil court for defaming 2 Georgia election workers and ordered to pay $148 million. He later reached a settlement that allowed him to keep his property. The proclamation specifically notes it does not apply to Trump himself, but it does clear many of the key figures who helped him challenge the 2020 results. President Trump is taking a victory lap after 2 of the BBC's top bosses stepped down over how the network edited his January 6th speech. And this morning, one of those leaders is speaking out. In a Truth Social post Sunday night, Trump wrote, the top people in the BBC, including Tim Davie, the boss, are all quitting/fired because they were caught doctoring my very good, perfect speech of January 6th. Thank you to the Telegraph for exposing these corrupt journalists. Hours earlier, the BBC confirmed both Director General Tim Davie and News Chief Deborah Turness had resigned. It centers on a BBC Panorama documentary that spliced together part of Trump's 2021 address, leaving out the line where he said supporters should, quote, peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. The version that aired kept the phrase, fight like hell, making it sound as if he were urging violence. Pressure exploded after Britain's Telegraph newspaper published details of a leaked internal dossier criticizing the BBC's editorial standards, including the Trump edit, and accusing the network of broad bias issues. In letters to staff, Davie said the decision was his, that, quote, mistakes were made, and he had to take responsibility. Turness called the uproar damaging to an institution she loves, saying simply, the buck stops with me. She at one time had been the head of NBC News. Reporters asked her this morning whether she thinks reporters are institutionally corrupt. Watch.
Do you think that the journalists are institutionally corrupt, like President Trump says? Do you think the journalists
Of course our journalists aren't corrupt. Our journalists are hard-working people who strive for impartiality, and I will stand by their journalism.
Is there institutional bias at the BBC?
There is no institutional bias. Mistakes are made, but there's no institutional bias.
But why weren't the mistakes dealt with on Trump, on anti-Semitism, on women's rights?
I'm sure that story will emerge, but for now I'm going to go in and see our teams.
Do you think
the resignations mark one of the biggest leadership shakeups in BBC history and a major test of trust in Britain's public broadcaster. Finally this morning, a sign the holidays have officially landed in New York City. Look, the Rockefeller Christmas tree rolled into Manhattan over the weekend, the star of the show, if you will, a 75-foot Norway spruce from upstate, just outside Albany. Crowds gathered as cranes eventually hoisted the 11-ton tree into place above the ice rink. People with coffee in one hand, phones in the other, capturing the first big moment of the season. Neat. This year's tree was donated by Judy Russ and her family, planted by her husband's great-grandparents nearly a century ago. She says it's bittersweet seeing it shine without him, but special that, quote, our family's tree gets to be everyone's tree. Next up, more than 50,000 lights, a 900-pound Swarovski star, and a big lighting ceremony December 3rd, officially turning the page to Christmas in the city that never sleeps. That is uplifting this morning. I don't know about you folks, but I'm ready for the holiday season. I actually went and got our tree last week. We're going to put it up the day after Thanksgiving in the Negrelli household. What about you? Do you have a tradition when you put your tree up? Is there like a benchmark date that you look forward to? Anyways, I just hope this gives you a bit of joy on a Monday morning. All right, before we head out, Here's what we're tracking today. At 11 a.m., President Trump hosts Syria's president at the White House, the first ever visit by a Syrian leader. Also at 11, health experts give an update on the measles spreading across North America. And at 1, billionaire Warren Buffett delivers a new message on philanthropy and succession as he gets ready to hand over the CEO reins but stay on as chairman at Berkshire Hathaway. Hey, be sure to sign up for our Unbiased Updates newsletter. It's the only thing more reliable than your alarm. Go to san.com/newsletters. Those are your Unbiased Updates for this Monday. We'll see you back here tomorrow. For all of us here at Straight Arrow News, I'm Craig DeGrelli. Have a great day.